Ringing out today as they have through the long ages of our history, the bells of England sound their countless messages of warning, sorrow and rejoicing. To maintain this unfailing service calls for the highest craftsmanship. Here at the Whitechapel Bell Foundry, Big Ben was cast. So were the Bow bells, all the bells of Westminster Abbey and many famous others. Here for nearly 400 years, bells which have rung all over the world have been cast, repaired and tuned. Pounded into shape by the automatic hammer, these clappers weigh anything from 28 pounds to 100 weight. They are the massive heartbeats of the bells they ring. Recently cast, these bells are ready to be tuned. The larger one is a tenor bell for St. George's Barkingside. The smaller is for a church in Jersey. Tuning is a highly specialized job. First, the inside metal of the bell has to be pared until the right thickness has been obtained, and then the bell is tested over a range of 2 octaves by calibrated tuning forks. A vertical lathe is used to pare the metal, a job which once was done by hammer and chisel. Although the fundamental principles of bell making are unchanged, they are still made of 4 parts copper to 1 part tin. Modern techniques make for less labor and greater accuracy. After a rough test with the mallet comes a delicate sounding with the tuning forks. The tuner is William Hughes, a member of the family which for generations has owned the Whitechapel Foundry. An old British craft lives on, creating and maintaining an accepted part of our national life. The bells in our churches and cathedrals, which are forever ringing the changes on our daily activities. The bells which toll us in and toll us out.
Big Ben, all 13.5 tons of it, was cast here at the Whitechapel Bell Foundry in 1858. The foundry was established over 5 centuries ago, so it's one of the oldest businesses in Britain and has been making bells big and small ever since. These castings will become a set of handbells for export. So what's a bell, any bell, made from?
It's an alloy of copper and tin. Now, both these metals are soft metals, but when they're alloyed, they become hard and brittle. It's a percentage of about 77 copper and 23% tin.
How long has the foundry been here?
Well, it's been in this site since 1738. When prior to that, it was in Aldgate High Street from 1570, and before that, in Aldgate from 1420.
And why did it come to Whitechapel in the first place?
You see, Aldgate was the medieval centre of the London bell founders. And in Aldgate today, you still have a street which runs between Fenchurch and Leadenhall Streets by the name of Billiter Street. Well, Billiter is a corruption of a bellitier, which was the Old English name for bell maker or bell founder.
How is it that a company in the Whitechapel Road receives so many important orders from all over the world?
Well, we've been going for a long time. Probably since about 1420 in Aldgate, and so we've become, I suppose, in the particular field of operation rather well known.
Word's starting to get around. What's the biggest and smallest bell that you've ever made?
Well, Big Ben is the largest bell we've ever made, and that's...
How long can a bell last?
Hundreds of years. We have two bells, for instance, in Westminster Abbey, one cast in 1583 and the other in 1598. And then last year we carried out some work to St Mary's, Wimbledon. And there were two bells there which were cast here, one in about 1572 and the other about 1520, and still being used.
What would the price of, say, a cathedral bell work out?
Well, of course, the cost of a bell is dependent on its size. I mean, I can remember before the last war, I used to buy scrap copper at £35 a tonne and tin at £150 to £200 a tonne. We now have to pay something like about £900 to £1,000 a tonne for copper and about £9,000 a tonne for tin.
Well, bell foundries are quite uncommon, really. Why is that?
Well, it's a small industry. Back in the 17th century, there were over 30 bell founders in this country, and they've gradually dwindled and dwindled, and now there's only 2. And in this century, 7 have closed down. And, you know, I suppose bells are expensive articles, and the church doesn't have the money to pay for them.
It's Sunday morning on CBS, and here again is Lee Cowan.
The bells at the National Cathedral in Washington will no doubt be around for a very long time. Not so the foundry that cast some of them, however. Turns out it's that very foundry for which the closing bell tolls. Jim Axelrod has an appreciation.
There is a certain timelessness inside London's Whitechapel Bell Foundry, where it could be the 21st century or the 19th.
This rammer I'm using is 100 years old, or thereabouts, this tool.
That tool is 100 years old.
Or thereabouts, yes.
Or even earlier.
So is the whole bell an F-sharp bell?
Yes.
Alan Hughes' family has owned the foundry since 1904.
I'm surrounded with bells. My whole life has been spent with bells, and I don't get too excited about it.
But that's just his family.
How far back does the Whitechapel Bell Foundry go?
We have always claimed 1570. Historical research has indicated we were more likely established sometime around 1420.
Which would mean the foundry was in business more than a century before Shakespeare was born. At half a millennium, this is the oldest continuously operating business in the UK. But after centuries and centuries, the company that produced the bells for Westminster Abbey, as well as Big Ben.
Big Ben isn't the clock.
It's the bell.
The Whitechapel Bell Foundry has cast its last.
We don't need bells. They were needed in the sense that they were the way of communicating basic information to what was then a largely illiterate population. They warned you of invading armies. They actually served a practical purpose. So bells are used today because we like them, not because we need them.
Even if demand was higher, the foundry is located smack in the middle of one of London's hottest neighborhoods. That's another rule of modern life. Prime real estate tops history. And it won't be just the Brits losing a connection with their history. We will too.
The first Liberty Bell was cast there, exactly where we are sitting.
Not exactly the Liberty Bell they line up to see in Philadelphia, but the grandfather to it, the first one cast, and later melted down to pour the second and third.
So the metal that is in the present bell is largely the metal that was poured here, beneath our feet, in a pit.
But if you think the end of a 500-year-old era is making Alan Hughes emotional, well, that wouldn't be very British now, would it?
I suspect that when this workshop is empty, on that occasion, I am entitled to feel something.
Even the stiffest of upper lips would waver a touch.
I anticipate that that will be the case.
What do you think you're going to do in your retirement?
The first week of my retirement, I will sleep 24/7. Then I will get up and reinvent my life.
Awakened by a bell?
Probably. Probably.